didn't read the article.
Oh, okay.
So is it 25,000?
No, it was several $1 million.
So from, I think it's from the mayor.
For
we got.
COVID.
Okay, we got a few batches of COVID. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So how did they break that up for us?
I will get you a breakdown of what that's.
Okay.
Because there's a couple different things that we've done, and I got a breakdown of all of things.
Okay, good.
Actually, I will email Rachel right now.
There's a lot of never moving, so I'm glad we're going down.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
really.
Oh, me too. I think it's exciting.
Hi, Tia.
Tia, are you ready?
I'm ready. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Very good. I'd like to call this board meeting to order, 5 p.m. on September the 28th. We'll start.
I'm sorry, what froze? Did you call for roll call?
Roll call, yes.
Okay. Mr. Ballard,
Here.
Miss Nazario,
Here.
Miss Johnson,
Here.
Mr. Sturgill,
Here.
and Mr. Williams.
Here.
The Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our first would be recognition of visitors. Of course, we have one of our EDC members here. And I do have a special request. We've asked come and give us an update on the levy. Danny, could you come to the mic, please?
Good evening. Thanks for having me, Mark. The school levy committee is made up of Bill Sturgill, Courtney Nazario, Janet Garcia, Paul Bieber, myself, and Aaron and Jeff Graham. And we've been meeting every week since July, and we're right on schedule. You know, we had gotten our fundraiser together, which is going to be Wednesday here, carry out only spaghetti dinner, no tickets sold at the door. We sold 538 tickets, so that's pretty good. And I must say with the new change of leadership at the LEA, we really have good response from the teachers. We have like 17 teachers that are coming to help us, and I only needed 8, so that's really good. And with the crowd we expect, we need that many. So I thank the LEA for that. I'll tell you, I'm a little disappointed with our leadership at the schools with informing their staff at the buildings about the upcoming spaghetti dinner. There are some that returned their packet unopened. So that tells me they didn't even tell their staff about it, because I got phone calls saying they were not aware of it. So that was a big disappointment, because on the packet, I wrote a letter explaining everything. And Jeff Hawks, I know, called them the Friday before to remind them about turning the money in on the following Tuesday. So I was disappointed in that. Two of the principals were calling the schools about how many signs their employees wanted, and then plus we sent 10 signs to each school to put out. That's on board. We got our mailer done a couple weeks ago because there's going to be a lot of absentee running this year, and they're very busy at Super Printer. So we got it done in time. They were printed last week, ready to go. And then like a week or so before October, the end of October, he'll get back with me to tell me how many people haven't voted at all. And then we'll send out mailers to them. That's the most expensive part of the campaign are the mailers. So, and we needed to spend more money this year than other years because of the situation. Oh, let's see. The LEA was helping us get the message out to everybody, to their teachers, and then the teachers to their social media. We had a question and answer pamphlet put together by Aaron, and Sandra Peliquin's supposed to be making it into question and answer so we can give to Victor to pass out. Dr. Graham was on the radio station with Victor, recorded a session with him. And Mark, is he going to go on your?
He is now.
Okay. You know, and we've asked people to ask their parents to write letters to the editor. Now, the mayor's letter was in the Chronicle already and the Journal. If you didn't see it, it's a very nice letter. You know, and I know I've asked Joel Arredondo, Tony Damacchia, Victor. So they're supposed to write letters, but anybody here, if they could write letters, because the Journal will start cutting off the date early. You know, so let's see, what else have we done? Bill, did I miss anything?
Sanford, Washington?
Oh, Sanford, sorry, my good friend Sanford. He's helping us. I called him and asked him, because for years he helped us, then he left, but now I thought it was a good fit because he's the safety service director for the city. So then the city would have representation. And then for the mailer, I had them, the ADC, the school board, and Joel Arredondo, and we went to Lakeview Park where it says Lorain, and then we took a picture of all of them saying working together, and it turned out really nice. So I think everybody will know that now the three entities are working together, not against each other. So that should help us. Unfortunately, you know, I've enjoyed my time doing this, but this is going to be my last school levy that I'm going to work on. So with that being said, Paul Beaver is going to step up for right now for the next one and be the chairperson, and Janet Garcia will be the treasurer, because I figure they have a few years. Hopefully, if we pass the levy now, they'd have a few years to regroup. So that's all I have to say.
So I will say that hopefully when this is over, you will get your rest and take a break and then be ready to go next time and change your mind on that one.
No, I have it on tape.
Well, we see most of stuff on tape lately, right?
Yeah, don't delete that.
And because, so I'm understanding that your tickets are basically sold out. You guys, I know you're not selling anymore. You're not selling any at the door.
Well, I'm not going to advertise it because then we'll have everybody coming
Mhm.
and only a certain amount of tickets. So if you guys know people, I have like 35 tickets left, and that's it.
And I was leading to the question. So those schools that did not open their envelopes, or for those buildings that didn't have an opportunity to buy those tickets, can they still like make donations toward the levy committee? And if so,
Mhm.
where would they send that to?
They would send it to Citizens for Lorain Schools and my home address, 228 Delaware Avenue.
So we encourage everyone who haven't had an opportunity to buy tickets to still please donate, participate any way you can.
Which we've had donations. You know, we have had the donations. And we did ask, in which I know that Julie, I think she went to all the schools, and she's encouraging employees to sign up for payroll deduction. Because through the years, we have had several people do payroll deduction, and it is very much appreciated, because for several years we didn't have to have fundraisers because there was that money coming in. So, you know, even if people just get $1, that's, you know, $24, $25 a year and it all adds up for the levy.
So
So-
I'll just add toward the end here. I've been around here a long time, and before I ever knew you, I knew you because everybody talked about your work here with the school and your work here with the levy committees, and you've done an awesome job for all these years. So let me take this moment to say thank you for our students and for our community for all you've done. That's been awesome.
I don't do it for that reason. I do it because I care, and I care about Lorain City Schools.
And we all know that. So we
And I
just want
fight for Lorain City Schools.
even us. So I know you. And that's all in love. That's all in love. But I just want to say thank you for all you've ever done.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And I would hope that, like I said, after you get your rest, that we continue in this fight together. But we do understand and appreciate everything you've done up to this point.
I do have a question,
Yes.
because I probably wasn't paying attention. Is there a Cash App or any way of doing that?
No,
Okay. Because I know it's become like so easy and convenient and all that stuff that folks just,
yeah, well, the next treasurer can do that.
gotcha.
This treasurer had no interest in doing all that stuff because of the fact that people don't realize, being the treasurer, even if you don't have a levy, I still have to do reporting twice a year because we get money. So I continually, and nobody else wanted to be one or the other, so I had to do both. So, and they wouldn't let me leave at the Board of Elections. They said I had to die before they would, and I'm not dying, so I got somebody.
Again, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else has anything to say? Everybody's good? All right. Next, hearing of the public, please. Anyone from the public?
Yes, my name is Jay Ferguson. I'm a retired educator in the district. I live at 1720 Skyline Drive. And I'm here to encourage you to consider the words that you uttered in August, which made a lot of sense about athletics. It was an unknown time, and the decision was made that Lorain was going to err on the side of caution and cancel fall sports. And look to the future when there was more data available. And I think that, and I don't know whose decision, I'm looking over at ADC and school board and CEO and everybody else. I don't know whose decision this is, but you now have a state full of data, as I think the OHSA concludes a successful fall sports season. And I know the concern was mentioned about protocols in place at other schools in our conference and the like. And I think the Lake Erie League has given us a good fall of health protocols and conducted their season safely. And I do a lot of work with some of our students just in tutoring, helping, whatever you want to call it. And I'm in and out of a lot of houses now because my usual McDonald's, the dining room's not open, so I can't tutor there. And I hear parents, because primarily my connection is with athletes. And I hear parents that are concerned that have remained in the district. And there are a lot of seniors, especially with a lot riding on this fall sports season in terms of their futures. Not that they won't have one without the opportunity, but that their futures would be much easier with the possibility of, college and athletic money to go along with academic money. So I'm going to ask whoever is the decision maker, please take a look at what has happened and let that guide you and let our kids, hopefully that you can find it clear to let our kids have the chance, because the other districts have proven that it can be done. And I'm sure that the professionals in Lorain can do as well. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your encouragement. And I think as you ask who makes the decision, you're looking at a table full of of folks that come together to make those decisions. And we are absolutely,
Just want to throw out one more thing. Middle school basketball tryouts for the LEL begin in 2 weeks. And the longer that the decision gets put off, we run the risk of the teams on our schedule turning their backs on us and even not being able to maybe start and compete in that middle school season, as we not only lose games, but we lose officials to other contests. So I'm not telling you that you have to do what I say. I'm just encouraging you to look as soon as possible at that decision.
thank you. Is there anyone else from the public? Seeing none, I need a motion to approve the September 15th special meeting minutes. So moved.
Support?
Roll call?
Mr. Sturgill,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Ballard,
Yes.
Ms. Nazario,
Yes.
and Ms. Johnson.
Yes.
Okay, number 7, old business. Is there anything in the old business category that we need to, hearing nothing. Report and recommendations of the treasurer.
Nothing at this time.
Moving on, to number 9, reports and recommendations of the CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Ballard. We do have, if we could pop up the, give a presentation, and it's a much shorter one than I think you've grown accustomed, but there are, can you understand with my mask on? And again, according to, I want to give a disclaimer, according to our health commissioner, that in this situation, we're all sitting 6 feet apart, sitting down with a normal tone, that it's safe to take your mask off. So under his guidance, I will take mine off to make sure that we're communicating clearly. There are a number of pieces and parts. Is this, at ours, can we go to the first one? Presentation?
Yep. You want all the way to the here?
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I was at it backwards. Yeah. There are a couple of things I do want to touch base on very quickly before I hand it off to Michael and Ross to walk us through the process we're following to do the phase 2 piece of that. I do understand that there was some frustration at the last board meeting that we didn't say, okay, we're opening back up again with phase 2 on whatever date. And I also know there are a lot of rumors floating around out there, and I forget what the dates are. There's 2 different, if they are accurate, it's completely by chance. We actually have a meeting scheduled tomorrow with about 40 people, and we'll identify all the needs and all the pieces. And for us right now, my opinion, except for one piece, I think we can probably figure out all the details quickly in our world. But as we promised, we wouldn't we wouldn't change to phase 2 without giving people a month's notice, because families have to prepare, we have to prepare. But we have no date. There is no advantage to us whatsoever to keeping this a secret and trying to unveil it at some certain time. So we have a process that we're going to walk through today, and the process doesn't have a timeline attached to it. But I think we can assign some things, not arbitrarily, but I think based on expertise of the folks in that room tomorrow. But the one piece that is going to define how successful this is the parent data. We need to know from our families what your preference is. If you are in a hybrid model, and we'll define what that looks like here very soon. But it's whether you come in for part of the time or all the time in phase 2, there's still the option to learn remotely. And we have to obviously determine staffing needs based on what our families prefer to make sure that we're meeting everybody's needs appropriately. So there are surveys out there. Please, please, please respond. Let us know what your plans are. So again, we can be as aggressive timeline wise. We want to do this quickly, but do it the right way. So we're not going to rush through it, but that's information we can't move without. And there's another slide that was up there that talked about a few more things. I just want to clear up some confusion that has been floating around out there. And one is not confusing. And Jay, I appreciate your comments. Fall and winter sports. The question is, and the comments were made a long time ago, we needed more information. And there are some things that I remember our coaches came and said, you know, Jeff, what's going to change? So between now and then, what you need to know, what you need to have. Candidly, there are some things that we have in place that I'm just talked about, not even secrets. I'm not really at liberty to share. We're working with different partners, and without talking with them to share out one message that they're all comfortable with. I don't feel speaking to some of the specifics as to why, but we will, unless something crazy happens. We fully plan to have winter sports, and we still plan to have our fall sports participate in the spring, which was an option that was provided to us a while back. And we communicated that early on, talking to Brian Corey again today, and we're still very optimistic that we can pull that off. So there are some things that I will share later on this week. Once again, we get a couple more questions answered and make sure our partners are all comfortable with the message that we plan to share. So, but those things, in my mind, bring me comfort to taking this to a place where we can not only make sure that we're creating the safest place possible, but we can also react in the quickest way possible. So there are a couple of factors there, but again, I'll share more. But to Jay's point, there are some timeline issues and some timing issues that we need to get out there. And one is that we have fully intend, and if I talked to Brian earlier today, and I'm asking him to reach out to his coach to let them know what our plans are. But again, the details will come out later. Attendance, and get a lot of questions. And if you look at attendance and testing, I would say that from staff and maybe even families, those are, I'm not saying the most troublesome or the most problematic issues that we've had, but they're the ones I hear about the most. And I understand why, and it's complicated in terms of the attendance piece. There are the days where kids show up in person, and there are the days when the kids don't show up in person. And the way we're taking attendance is, and jump in if I'm not being clear on this, if it's a day we're expected to be there in person, if you're there, you're there. If you're not, you're absent. Unless you make up the assigned work that was assigned during that time slot. Then again, so at a later date, you've got 5 days during the week. The teachers have to report on Monday. So actually students have a 7-day window in which to complete the work. And I understand that's complicated for teachers, and it's what we're trying to do is have accurate information. And so that's our change. I'm sorry, the change in the process that we're following is now we're asking that if a student isn't on the camera on a day when they're expected to be on the camera, so let's know why not. And it's not that you're all of a sudden you're absent and the rules have changed. Everything else still applies. You can still make up your work anytime over that 7-day window. However, if you're not on, let us know why so we can help. We believe there's a benefit to being face-to-face with our adults because not only is it I think, more effective from an academic standpoint, I think it's more effective from a social-emotional learning and a connection standpoint. We want to make sure you're okay. So if you're attending a preschool where they don't allow you to be on a laptop, let us know, and we'll see what we can do to help with that. If you're sick, we get that. If you're having internet issues or computer issues or whatever the issues are, let us know why you're not there so we can personalize our plan to make sure you have what you need to get done what we're hoping to get done. So again, things haven't changed. We're just looking for more information so we can be more supportive. The testing piece, we do have a couple of tests. We have NWEA and iReady, and those span, NWEA is grades K through 5, and the iReady is 6 through 8, and they're diagnostic tests. The state requires us to give our own state-approved vendor assessment in grades K through 3, and for us, that's the NWEA, so we have to give that test. But we also need to give that test because it gives us valuable information. It tells us not only exactly where your child is or where our students are, but exactly where their strengths and weaknesses are so we can personalize our approach to making sure they get what they need. So again, all this comes down to getting more and more information about the children we serve so we can be as purposeful in our approach. So please.
So to that point, because this came up as well, families 100% want to help support students. We are hearing it loud and clear. And there was a bit of confusion about, what that support looks like during these testing times. As Dr. Graham alluded to or stated directly, this is a diagnostic, so we know exactly where our students are. I'm looking all over as though there's not a camera out there, but to know exactly where our students are at this time. We also have to consider where we were in the spring relative to how we provided instruction or work is different now. There was also summer months, and we traditionally know that there is a bit of a slide during the summer. These diagnostic, given both of those variables, lets us know where our students are. So families, as we continue down this diagnostic road, I'm begging, pleading, not to help aside from maybe helping them get logged in as necessary, but helping them with the test is not going to help our teachers plan for the future for our students. It's important that we are also able to look at trends across grade level, across subjects, to see where, we can update our maps or prioritize our standards so that, we really know where to lean in on for our students right now. So I just wanted to provide that bit of clarity as well.
And one more.
Thank you, parents, for helping families for helping students get logged in, and know that we understand it's coming from a good spot of wanting to help, like you would with a homework assignment or, providing that extra instruction. For the test, just not right now.
And there's another misconception too, and historically or during normal times, these tests, you take them at the beginning of the year and you take them at the end of the year to find out how much a student has grown. And historically, and again, during normal times, we use that to help inform what teacher evaluations look like, what they should be. I'm as good of a teacher as I was able to help my students grow. That's not the case this year because we know there's so many challenges with implementing a diagnostic test remotely as we're still trying to fumble through some things. We're still having some internet issues, some device issues. And although getting through those very, very quickly, it still has an impact on that. So again, our goal is to make sure we're taking care of one another but we need to learn as much as we can about our students so our teachers can prepare and accordingly. And the last piece is communication. And we are, first of all, we'll get better. But we are, I think, where we need to be in terms of communication. We just have to refine some things now that we're getting caught up. And what I mean by that is right now, and Ross and Michael and I had a conversation before this board meeting, and their job is to meet with people and make decisions. And we have other people out meeting with people and making decisions. I have people ask me a question. I said, let me get you the most up-to-date answer because I don't know. And they say, well, you're the superintendent, don't you know? If people have to wait for me to make every decision, we're never going to get anywhere. So there's a process that takes time. So there's a ripple effect with that. Michael and Ross often know things before I do. And the people that they're making decisions. And so there's a lot of things happening. Then we huddle up and then we share information out. But sometimes because there's a level of urgency and because times are crazy and people are already stressed and anxious, when information kind of gets out, then it becomes a bigger deal than it would during normal circumstances. But again, we need to get better. We'll huddle up more often and make sure that we're sharing one common message as opposed to somebody leaving a meeting and reporting out, and then other people are getting together to talk about it. So things aren't going out as structured as they should be. So again, that's something that I own, something we'll work on, but it comes completely from huddling people back up again before we share a message, as opposed to people getting excited because they have information and want to act immediately, because our goal is to meet needs. And we have people who are, again, the people we have in leadership position are servant leaders and want to take care of those who are struggling. So the communication piece will become cleaner. But again, that's on me to make sure that we are more structured in our approach. So if we could now update folks on, again, while they're setting up and going back to the right screen, because I got us off base. Our phase, we have a couple different things going on right now. We have a phase one that needs to make sure that we're getting better and better and better at phase one, because even when we're in phase two, some of those principles translate. Because if I'm choose to have my child be fully remote, then again, those practices still need to improve. Then we have to define what phase two looks like and get better at phase two, which is a different group of people, but I will defer.
Before you take it over, Ross, I think Bill had a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, Bill.
I have one question. You gave us a figure last time, 485 children. I mean, we're in the third week now. Have we improved on that number quite a bit?
If I'm not mistaken, I think the 485 number was the number of students who reached out for Spectrum for internet service. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think the most current number is 545. So that number is still growing, and Spectrum is working on meeting those orders.
So that number isn't the ones that don't have it. Those are the ones that do have it.
No, those are the ones who do not.
So it went up to 5. Okay.
I guess my question is then, what are we doing about testing for those kids? I mean, we have internet. My daughter took the test today. She was kicked off 3 times. And it was through the test, and she was frustrated. So that adds to the not accurate part of it, because she was kicked 3 times off. My other girls were on the internet still. And so like through the test and whatnot. So what are we doing about the kids even that don't have the internet?
If you applied for the way it's theoretically working, if you don't have internet and you applied for the Spectrum piece and there's going to be a delay, then you get a hotspot. The downside with that is, and again, one of the challenges is the hotspots that we are giving out aren't designed to handle families of 3 and 4 and
Right.
5. They're designed to handle children, 1 or 2 at a time. So that adds to the challenge without a doubt.
But I didn't think we had that many hot spots. So we have 500 hot spots
We-
to hand. I mean, I'm saying,
Yeah.
was everybody able to take the test that is enrolled in, like, that has their computers at home? Does everybody right now have an internet or hotspot at the 4th week of school? I
I
mean, do
can't
we
s-
have kids that haven't even engaged in school yet?
I can't say that yes with confidence. And the reason I'm giving that answer is that we're still having parents reach out today and say,
Okay.
I don't have the internet.
Okay.
So some of it is the timeliness of when we get the information. Part of it is the timeliness with which we're reacting.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, but before you guys start, because I know this is kind of a big thing, have our teachers reported any information? Do we have a process where we start to look at what did we lose in the spring? So if I was taking Algebra 2 in the spring, Algebra 1, and then in this fall I'm in Algebra 2, what impact that spring had on what's happening now? I mean, have we, first of all, have we gotten feedback? We may have gotten some. And what is our process? How are we going to try to assess that?
And part of that is, and I'll defer while they gather their thoughts. Part of that is what we talked about before as to why we're not using this data to, for teacher evaluations, for partly what Courtney mentioned, but also because there's a lot of stuff that we just don't know. So part of it is what was the lag there. The information that we're getting K through 8 is exactly that, but it won't measure from the spring because last year there was not a spring test given necessarily. I'm not sure, I don't think we gave our spring. Yeah, so because we missed the spring, we won't know the dip from spring to now. What we'll notice is what happened from last fall to now. So we'll see where our kids should have been in a typical year versus where they are as a result of not just having summer lag, but having spring and summer lag, where we weren't in school. Anything else?
No, that's well said. I mean, and just to expand a little more, we'll take a look at when the assessment results come back, and we're going to look at them because we know there are confounding things. So like, Courtney, like you were describing, that we're going to have to look at and see, does this give an accurate picture or not really in this case? And so while that's going on this week, then next week we can start taking a look at those results to see, like Dr. Graham was just saying, where are we now as opposed to where we were a year ago at this time? Do these results make sense? Are we a little elevated? Are we a little bit depressed? What does that look like? And then to come back and say, all right, now more specifically, where, do we see some elevations or some areas that maybe aren't quite as strong as other areas? But yeah, that information right now it's important to us. And we also need to know where we do have like the situation that you described. And that's where that test doesn't tell us everything, and it never should tell us everything. That we also need to match that up with what our teachers are seeing. I mean, they see the students, they're assessing now. It's obviously looking different now than it does when we're in person, but that they can match up to say, all right, well, on the standards now, here's what we would typically expect to see. Here's what we're seeing now, so we can also piece it together that way. So all our eggs are not in one testing basket.
Okay, so in that kind of answer to a point, I guess I'm asking so the testing measures certain things, tells us certain information. What other things are in place to gather information from folks who are teaching? The test tells me a whole lot about the student growth and students where they are, but probably teachers who do this all the time, while we're waiting for some results to come back of something, I'm sure they have a very good sense of where they are. Have we formally started to extract that information? Do we have something in place to do that? Because again, the test data is valuable, but it's really it's not necessarily an easy process, but how do we quantify that and gather that information?
Well, there's a couple things there. First, our teachers still do have collective planning time. So if I'm sharing content with another teacher, I have time to talk about those assessment pieces that aren't tied to a diagnostic. So we talk about assignment equivalency and that being a way of tracking attendance, but it's also, assignments let us know how well our students are doing relative to the instruction that they receive. And that's where, coming back to that attendance piece, where we need our students best possible, unless there's some extenuating circumstances, to be with our teachers, because that's where the course corrections come into play. So for instance, I've we've given out a week's worth of assignments, and they've been logged in with us synchronously. We know where the course corrections come, and then we've talked about our asynchronous schedule being time for teachers to potentially pull in students, provide that intervention or enrichment based upon the factors that they're learning on a day-to-day. So we do have systems in place there. Part of our work moving forward will be and the process that you speak of is the Ohio improvement process that we're re-engaging in, where teachers at the teacher-based team level discuss their data, discuss their instruction, how students are doing, and it works its way up to the building leadership team and then to the district leadership team and funnels down so that there can be ongoing support. So there's the diagnostic pieces that we're gathering now, and part of our balanced assessment system does include formative assessments that teachers are given on a day-to-day, or in this case, maybe a week out, and then, how do we plan around those results? So where we need, from a district standpoint, to do as we, are leveraging phase one, is to listen and learn more about what's going on right now in the classroom. But that is happening on the building level. There are directions that are being course corrected by teachers, and so I think, to someone's point, trusting the experts to make expert level decisions.
And we're matching that up with our staff survey that's running right now, and then our family survey that's running right now. So we need to take a look to see how our students are performing, and we also need to listen to and hear back from our staff so we can know, here's what's going well, here's what's not. I mean, you guys know we're part of the group to put that together, but from the staff perspective, and then also from the family perspective, so we can hear from them what's going well, what isn't going well. Not just about, I mean, we obviously have concerns about academics, but meals, technology, all those pieces, so we can have a really clear kind of 3-point picture. Here's what our students are demonstrating right now. Here's what our staff is saying. Here's what our families are saying. So we can have a really good, clear picture. And we know that we have got some trouble spots out there that we need to improve upon. We also are pretty confident there's are areas out there that are going well and maybe aren't going well that we don't know about. And so the surveys are really important for us to just have a clear picture of reality so we can see what's going well, what isn't going well, and then whatever we need to do to adjust based on that.
And Ross, if I could chime in for a second. So we've really been looking at the academic versus non-academic barriers for students. And so with the non-academic, that's where our teachers are really zeroing in on what kids need and how can they address those needs. Because at the beginning of every school year, what teachers do is they try to assess without necessarily formally assessing what kids know from before. And this year in particular, this is our 4th week of school. The first week was about getting kids on, building relationships, connecting with families, and even into the second week. This 3rd week, we started the diagnostic, which is an adaptive assessment that allows us it'll keep circling back to see where kids are. So we'll get a really good picture of where they are academically from this assessment. But to your point, getting a good picture of where they are non-academically through teacher interaction and teacher feedback. So there's kind of two paths that we're taking here to get what we need without overwhelming our kids with assignments and testing and so it's a lot of informal conversations. We talk about 1,000 conversations about nothing, right? So that you can figure out what's really happening with the student and what their needs are so that we can address those.
Thank you.
So with that said, Ross, you'll move to the next slide. What it looks like phase one, what it has looked like. We've talked a lot about that actually, but I do want to take a moment as we talk about all that goes into play relative to helping students be successful on a day-to-day. There has been a lot of our staff wearing different hats. A lot of our principals, for instance, have been technicians because parents are coming up. And if something is going wrong relative to, it could be a login, it could be, I'm getting the white screen and I can't do anything about it. How do I get help? Whether it's teachers that are, making these calls that to find out what the needs are that are non-academic. Families, we're in houses now like we've never been before, and parents are taking on the role of providing support to students with instruction during the day. Families, it could be caregivers. Everyone's doing things that they haven't done before, and that's what phase one has looked like, with the ultimate goal of providing an education to our students so that we can continue to grow. So there's a couple images that has been provided on what it looks like. And as you can see, those are just a few. Keep going, Ross, please. Our students, being engaged, whether it's iPads or laptops. There have been struggles, and in this case, successes. Our Zoom meetings, where there have been, and whether we're talking K all the way up to the high school, students getting on, some showing faces, some not. Some communicating through the chat, others communicating verbally. Some students getting involved synchronously, and others we found out that there are some real barriers, and asynchronous is the way that they have to go about learning right now. So we have to build plans around that. But all of that is our reality. And the most important, well, not the most important piece, but another part of our reality is it hasn't been perfect. Go back to what phase one said. Step 15 was course correction. We could continue down the road to say, well, this is what the plan was, and this is how we planned on implementing the plan, and have some serious struggles. Or we could be adaptive and hear what those struggles are and try to course correct in a timely manner. And that's what we're doing. And it's not a perfect science right now. But the goal is each day to get better and better. And for the struggles, we are going to lean in and try to help. But we also want to grab the fact that there are some students that are thriving right now as well. Students that may not have thrived in other type of schooling situations, the face-to-face. So we're learning and we're putting a magnifying glass on things that are working and not working in phase one. But please know the goal is when we do come out of phase one that we're better than we have been. And there's a lot of learnings that we can take away from this, and we're gathering those. And that's why it's important to have that phase one team that is analyzing what's working, what's going on right now, what isn't working, and also the emerging phase two team to look at where we're going to go in the future. And how do we bring students and staff back in a safe manner? And what should instruction look like in that scenario? So we've got these two things going on right now. And that's what our phase one looks like. That's what our reality looks like. The questions that are posed to us, keep them coming. Whether it's staff, whether it's board members, whether it's family and community, we'll take the question. And we may not always have the answer at that given time. And it may also foster things that we need to do. But if we truly are a community and a village, then we need to be able to accept feedback, praise things that are going wrong or going right, praise things that are going right, pose questions, propose ideas, and work on it together. So that's what phase one truly looks like right now. So Ross, please continue. And I said I was gonna keep myself within a time, so I'm gonna keep moving. We have offered in the past week surveys for staff and surveys for families. I'm gonna encourage families. Teachers may still be sending you out reminders via their dojo or their Google Classroom to get involved with the online survey. The more information we can gather from the online survey, if not, then we're gonna start picking up the phone and making calls that way too, because we know that there's different ways that our families want to engage. Dr. Graham spoke about that, so I won't go down that road again. And then phase two. So what does it look like? First off, just as Dr. Graham had alluded earlier, there's no secrets about coming back. So for instance, this was the call I got today. Well, I heard that bus routes have been given out. Does that mean we're coming back on the 19th? Because bus routes are coming out. Well, no, bus routes are a part of getting ready, and bus drivers need to know what those routes are, and those routes change over time. So just want to kind of allude to the fact that we need to, Ross, go ahead and slide. We will have a process, and some of you are familiar with the triangles from phase one reopening, and we're going to go through a similar process where we form a team, that team is meeting on Tuesday. We learn successful in-person models from others. We're at a luxury right now, and school districts are going to start to look up to us too about what we're doing remotely. We're going to ask what people are doing in their hybrid models and learn and go see and make sure that what we're planning, well, let's see what we can learn from other districts. We're going to design our model with school health agencies, as Dr. Graham had pointed out. There's partnerships that have been established. And as we move forward, we're going to make sure that they're at every meeting to help us with our design every step of the way. We're going to ask our families to give us information about, once we can show what it looks like, how do you feel that this is going to work for your student? We're going to ask our staff the same question. How comfortable do you feel now that we've created this space and you can see it entering back in? We need to leverage that information. We need to leverage our learning models so that we can minimize as much discomfort or minimize as much questions on the front end as possible, knowing that even when we go into phase 2, and that may be remote or hybrid, that there's still going to be questions along the way. From that, we're going to continue to survey families. We want to make sure that, well, let me go, I read it wrong. Revise school design based upon feedback. Then we want to share the school design with the community. So we want to make sure our community knows what our design looks like ahead of time. We're going to scale up, and we'll go through this later in another slide. I'll invite Ross to the conversation. But we'll scale up for all schools, in-person learning, define hybrid options, again, survey families to see where do you want to land. So you've gotten all this information. You've seen what the school looks like. You see what our learning options are. Phase 2 is parent choice. Establish staff assignments, because based upon where our families say they land, we'll determine how we look at staffing. And then, just like we have step 15 in our process now, course correct and adjust. So that's the planning process as a whole. And we're going to go through it with intentionality, but we've also know that there's certain safety must-haves. So we want to make sure that we have established a personal protective equipment policy, protocols for testing and contact tracing, and keeping the public informed, transportation protocols and procedures, entry and dismissal procedures, making sure that we're aware of the maximum number of students for each classroom in each building is critical. And then those things such as lunchroom protocols and procedures. Our students have to eat, and we have to make sure that they're safe when they're in our spaces. So these are some of our safety must-haves. And meeting with the team, phase 2 team tomorrow, there's going to be a growing list because there's 35 to 40 people, and I'm sure they're going to have some must-haves. We shared some information and some research in preparation for the agenda, and that's why we're bringing people together so that we can expand on these must-haves, so that we can then make sure that we know that we've met as many of those must-haves as possible to ensure, once again, safety for our students and safety for our staff. That priority has not changed. That's been the priority since our first meeting. I remember being here. Ross was, I think, not with us at that point, so the meeting might have been a little bit longer because I talk a little bit more. But the idea was the priority is safety first for our staff and students alike. So that hasn't wavered. But we've learned a lot since then, and we can make some more informed decisions.
And I want to draw just attention to the blue banner at the bottom. We are not naive to the fact that the coronavirus is present, and we need to design our environments so that, and our health commissioner, Dave Cole, has been great about this, to tell us you need to design presuming that people will come contagious to your school, and spread needs to stop. You cannot contribute to the spread. So that's that bottom blue banner there, I think, is really important to point out that we have to be extremely intentional to design, assuming that COVID will be present in our buildings.
So big things, and someone from the community reached out to me last week and said, hey, at the board meetings, can you just give the people what they want? They want to know some decisions and what have been made. What we're going to build will be clear understanding. We know what remote learning looks like right now. So when you look at that slide, we know what remote learning is. Our families are growing to know what that exists. But what they're gonna have to also make a decision of as we gather more information is, they want to be part of this hybrid learning model. And that may look different. That's why, once again, we're bringing people together to begin to design what that looks like at the elementary level, what a hybrid might look at middle or secondary, and what it may look like at high school. So we have to build that out, and we have to be able to present that to families so that they can make an informed decision on what that looks like. So that's part of the parent choice options that as we go through our step-by-step plan that we'll be able to share with families so that informed decisions. So you've got the safety component, and then you'll have the instructional component then you can look at all the data around, whether it's our city or our county, and then make an informed decision. And that's been the ultimate goal, to get ready for that.
I could just kind of speak to that a little bit. And we have no problem making a decision. I mean, but it's the informed decision piece that we can't underestimate the value of. And what we mean by that is, when I come to the table, I have one perspective, that of a superintendent, CEO, but I also need perspective of a second grade teacher and a support staff member from the high school. And so we need all the perspectives at the table to make sure we've got our bases covered. So when we do make a decision, we know it's the best decision we can make. Now, we know that during a pandemic, we oftentimes have to make a decision between a bunch of bad options. We have to take the one that's the least bad. So right now, but again, whatever decisions we make, I hope that there's at least some confidence growing that the decisions we're making are based on the consideration of all perspectives necessary.
So as Michael and Dr. Graham both alluded to, but we know people want to know, like, what's the date and when we're coming back, and we have no idea what that date's going to be yet, but we do have a good idea about how long process should take us to get to a point where we can make decisions. And so the next couple slides lay out like each step that we have and approximately how long we expect that part of our process to take. So where you see P1, that still references phase 1. And so P1, step 15, the staff survey, online survey, we have those started last week. They continue through this week. So that's the 2 weeks. Next week, we're going to get the group back together, and next Thursday, and we're going to go through the staff and family survey data and find out what our staff and families are telling us.
If I could jump in real quick, for those of you who are looking at the screen and just trying to do the math and adding up all the weeks, understand there's a lot of overlap in those weeks. So, for example, the online staff survey and the online family survey could be the same 2 weeks. So it's not 2 + 2.
Yep. Phase 2 team, that's we start tomorrow afternoon. But then you'll see that the school visits should happen right away. That should be an action that we arrive from the meeting tomorrow afternoon. Which schools in the area do we want to go learn from based on questions that we have that we need to learn more about? We'll design our model schools in partnership with our health partners. That hopefully takes us a week or two if we need to go 3 weeks, but to make sure that we get our model schools set up so that from there our staff, our families have a chance to see our design, and they have a chance to provide feedback to us on our design. So, and we'll survey them going in, we'll survey them going out, and that feedback will be critical to us so we can make whatever adjustments we need to the environment to make sure that our staff and families feel comfortable and confident in the mitigation practices that we have.
And that has been ongoing. So, to the operations department and all the work that they've done relative to whether it's ordering, whether it's already setting up, because we have staff in our buildings and putting those mitigation strategies in place. But now we need to expand and leave no classroom unturned too. So that's part of the design model. And then what have we learned since June, July, August? Districts are involved already. What have they learned, and what can we adapt to make sure that we're seamless in our transition?
Where you see P2 step 4, P2 step 5, it's just phase 2 step 4 and step 5. That vetting process is so important because again, while we'll have 35 to 40 people put together our process, there are still another 850 out there from staff, and we've got our families that need to take a look from their perspectives and say, did you think about that? Because again, we know that we've got some blind spots. And then from there, we know we need to do a lot of communicating. Our families told us very clearly in July that they were not comfortable sending their children back to school. And so we're going to need to do a lot of communicating to show, look, here's our school design now. Here are our mitigation practices. What questions do you have? So that'll be part of our process. And then from there, the feedback that we get, we'll make revisions to our school process based on, again, information we collect along the way. We'll scale up our model schools then, and then we'll need to know very clearly from our families, what's your intention? So is your intention to continue in a remote fashion? Is it to participate in the in-person option that we can design? and then matching our staffing with that. So that's our phase two in a nutshell. Again, we don't have a specific date, but the group that will come together tomorrow afternoon will start us down this path. And every step of the way, again, we'll have information that we can share with everybody. Everything will be transparent. We won't have any secrets. So you can know exactly where we are, what we've learned, what we've adjusted, all along the way.
Now, I just want one quick reminder that the reason we went full remote at the beginning of the year was based on the data that we collected from our families and from our staff. Our families said, we don't feel comfortable sending our kids in for these reasons. And our staff said, we don't feel comfortable because we're not ready. So there was an understanding that we needed to get better at taking mitigating measures to protect our students and our staff from the spread of the virus. Our staff recognized it loud and clear in our surveys. Our families recognized it. We'll be ready. We've been doing a lot of work. We're setting the stage, and I think that, and Ross mentioned a little bit too, there's also that educational component. What I mean by that is, here are the issues, here are the best ways to deal with the issues, here's exactly what we're doing. So again, as we start to build our plan, we'll also educate our families and our staff on what our plan is going to look like. And the one promise that we made is we'll give a month's notice before we implement the plan, so everyone has a chance to prepare for the transition. And that's doesn't necessarily have to happen on a board meeting night. If there is, actually not a scheduled one anyway, we'd call a special one or a commission meeting to let folks know here's exactly what's going to happen, here's when it's going to happen. But I can't stress this part enough, and we've mentioned it many times throughout the course of the meeting. The data that we need is to our families, what do you want? Do you want, again, it's family choice. So we have to staff appropriately and design our buildings appropriately to meet the needs of those who are coming, but also have to have the staff available to provide an education to those who are going to learn remotely. So again, that family data is huge for us. Any questions from the board before we transition to the agenda items?
Everybody clear? We're all clear.
Okay. Then I would like the board to consider for discussion and approval personnel matters. Items is 3.01 to 3.03.
Motion to approve?
Support. Roll call.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Sturgill,
Yes.
Mr. Ballard,
Yes.
Ms. Nazario,
Yes.
and Ms. Johnson.
Yes.
And I'd like the board to consider for approval operations matters, items 4.01 to 4.19.
So moved.
Support?
Roll call.
Mr. Sturgill,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Ballard,
Yes.
Ms. Nazario,
Yes.
and Ms. Johnson.
Yes.
And those are the items.
I'm sorry. Can I ask
please.
a question real quick?
Please.
Why are we not doing the same, all elementary schools have the same, like Garfield, for example, has Starfall, but no other elementary schools do. When we know that we're such a transient district, that so the kids at Garfield using Starfall, halfway through the semester, they moved to Hawthorne. Now they're using a whole new, where if we kept Starfall, they would just log right in and continue on.
That is a hint of our future.
Okay.
Again, I think it's very important that we, common structures, common language, common
Right.
processes. We chose not to do that for this year because of the pandemic. We wanted there to be some level of familiarity with our staff and what the tools they were used to. But as we build out, and Michael and Ross both talked about the Ohio improvement process and some of these things we're working on together, we don't even have a common curriculum necessarily.
Right.
So I think we need to pick one and get really, really, really good at it. Pick one, whatever curricular resources support that. Again, those are things we use, but again, we need to do things that make sense for our children and not just based on adult convenience. And what I mean by that, all these things can be good, but it's confusing to our children who go from grade level to grade level and there's a change, or building to building and there's a change.
Right.
So it needs to be continuity. We agree completely.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And I just want to go to, and we mentioned this a little bit at the last meeting, the structure of our meeting. And I mentioned, actually Michael led into it when he talked about making sure that we're listening to everybody before we make decisions. And the process we've established is that of collaboration. And I think it's important for a healthy organization. As I understand it, the process is different now than it used to be for board meetings in terms of voting on agenda items. I just want to walk folks through our process. We have a pre-agenda meeting where we all go over what the agenda items are, and everybody, HR presents, and I'm in the meeting, they kind of present all the pieces out. We have a room full of people, including board members, all administrators, so we can all talk about what these items and issues are. And those that make it onto the board meeting, again, the goal is to listen and engage our Board of Education because it's a healthier approach to leading an organization. These are folks that have been elected by the community, should have an input. Again, their perspective needs to be present in these pieces. And then there's another meeting where legally I approve of these things and they get shared with everybody. So this is a process, and again, it's one that is intended to be inclusive. People ask the question all the time, who do I work for? Legally, I work for the Academic Distress Commission, and I work at their pleasure. That said, a healthier leadership model is one that is, in my opinion, is more inclusive and is making sure that the voice of the community is at the table. So that's just want to make sure folks understand, because I've received questions on the way we're doing meetings now. That's it.
Have anything else from the board? Any committee reports? No comments? Final hearing of the public?
And as a citizen, compared to what we had before to now, thank you, thank you, thank you. Because the work that your department does on this, wonderful, because the public is informed. We're not in, like what's going on mode. And it's nice to see the board, the CEO and his group, and the ADC working together. When you start doing that 3.0 and all that, I thought, oh, good, this is fun. Because now we're back to the old way where, like you said, everybody is informed. There's no, I wonder what they're doing. And you don't really have to do that with the way HB 70 is. So I appreciate that. And thank you, Dr. Graham, for being like this and informing everybody. And those two are good.
I can promise you, Bambi.
Those two.
I can promise you, we got a dozen more good ones on the computer zooming in. I know.
But really, I feel you have a good team.
We have good people, there's no
Yeah,
doubt. I mean,
very
you've heard me
good.
say before, when you have good people, everything else is easy. And we have a table full of them, we've got a Zoom meeting full of them, we have a community full of them, we're gonna be just fine.
That's why we
Yep.
have to get that to the public, so people know who these people are and what they do.
Agreed.
We need people, your whole administration, because it's all different.
And if I could too, and I apologize, I meant to say this too, but speaking of thank you, and you mentioned that this is your last levy to run, and Bambi, you've been in charge of many, many things for a long time in the city of Lorain. And I remember, and I'm saying this now because there's a pretty good chance you won't come back, but I don't want to come across as a eulogy. When I say you won't come back, I know you don't like the spotlight, so the board meeting piece is not something you appreciate. But I remember, and it was 4 or 5 years ago, and when we gave you the award, I was honored to present Bambi with an award, and her picture hangs down the hallway because of all the great things she's done. And there were different people from different communities in the audience, I don't know if you remember. And somebody said, yeah, every community has one. And I correct them, that's not true. I mean, I've been in many communities, and you are truly a special person, and the work that you've done, the things you've been able to accomplish in this city for this school is just, no, I mean it, Bambi. I think you know me well enough to know that I wouldn't say if I didn't mean it. Again, a lot of things like running levy campaigns, not a lot of glory in those things, but you consistently do the right things. And as you mentioned earlier, you fight for our kids, and everybody's better off because of all the things you've done. And I just, on behalf of the school district, I just want to thank you truly.
Thank you. Everybody always says that, oh, I see you every day. I go, where? I don't know. But really, it's really nice having all this.
I wanted to make one comment.
Please, Bill.
I just wanted to make one comment. I was here the other day, And I happened to walk back into this cafeteria. And if anybody hasn't ever, I guess they have to just give a shout out to Aramark for feeding the children. And it's really a process. And I came in here and it looked like an open air market, and but it looked like a bunch of bees going around. I mean, these people were busy, and they do this every day, every single day, you know. And so I just can't say enough about good, hardworking people. I mean, it was. I mean, I know they do it for a wage and everything, but there's a lot of dedication there. There's a lot of good people.
And along those lines too, Bill, and I appreciate you mentioning that, when we went to them and said half of our families who want access to our food don't have access to our food, the next day they had a plan that was outlined based on a lot of logic, and it again went from 9 sites to 36 sites, and every issue that parents said collectively were common themes in why they didn't have access. They had a plan to address that. It was outstanding, and again, it was on a dime.
Yeah, they were great.
And I'll only add, as we close, this year is quite a year. And from levies to food service to athletics to curriculum, nobody's ever been here before. So in 4 weeks in, I know we ask a lot of really tough questions, and some of them we're not going to have the answers to yet, but I am saying to the community at large, before we sit in a seat of judgment of things that aren't going as perfect as you would like them, understand we're building this plane in midair and we're figuring it out, and we're putting a lot of time. We meet daily. We meet daily for hours at a time to have these discussions. So the things that you're thinking about, or that you're making the Monday morning call, I guess, for the Monday morning quarterback, believe me, there's been a lot of time and energy put into everything that's going on here. And for that, with all the busy bees, as you call them, working here, it's been an incredible process to see come together. And I'm sure every district is doing it. And because it's not uniform by the state that we're all doing the same thing, everybody's creating it as it goes. So be patient, have grace, and hang in there with us, because we're going to get through this very well. That's to our community as a whole. Anyone else have anything to add?
Hey, Steve. Yeah. How you doing over there, man? We haven't heard from you. You just sit there all stealth and your Steeler stuff. I see the shoelaces.
I'm just taking it in over here, listening, just.
How you guys doing? You're in the trenches. You're doing the day-to-day.
I think it depends on where you're at, to be really honest. And I'm not going to sit here and say that I speak for every teacher in the district. I can say for me personally, things are going very well. And I know some of my colleagues are going very well. My kids are Zooming in. Today I had 98% attendance. They took their exam last week. They're communicating with me over the weekend. I feel, my wife said I'm like a doctor, because my phone buzzes when I get either a Canvas message or an email, and I respond to it, and it's going very well. On the other hand, I know that some they're hurting right now. I've had elementary people reach out to me that there's issues with technology, which has been established here already. And the reality is they're looking for ways to try to mitigate some of the pain that they're feeling, especially for the younger kids. I was at the gym working out the other day, and I had a parent come up to me and says, "I'm struggling, man." He's like, "My second grader and I have to be together trying to do this, and I got to work, I've got to do this." And they honestly said, "I'm not equipped to be a teacher and do the things that you guys do." So I think every educator in this district, every person is experiencing a lot of different things. And I think some are going better than others. I mean, the hope is that, we'll be able to get that plane built to a point where it can fly much better than it might be flying now. But it's not because people, I don't think, are trying not to get the plane built. It's just, we're doing things that there's been said we've never done them before. But hopefully, as we move, starting tomorrow, I'm looking forward to the phase 2 meeting. I think it's important that we get our kids back in the building. And that's, I think, something that we have to do, especially the younger kids who I think need that interaction with their teachers, and to do it the right way, do it safely and productively. And I'm encouraged by what Dr. Graham has said today, and especially about the sports piece. I think that's a step. That's another question that I get asked frequently wherever I go. I'm out working in my yard, stopped me and asked me, "Are we having basketball this year?" I said, I don't know, but the hope is that we will. So I'm encouraged by what Dr. Graham has mentioned in regards to that. So I think from my perspective, there's some optimism that we can get this done, and we're moving in the right direction. At least I hope so. So is that good? You want to keep going? I can keep going if you want to ask me. You want to ask me about the Steelers? We can talk about Big Ben. I mean, we can keep going.
Well, I have missed the voice of Lorain Athletics, so I mean, if you want to keep going.
Well,
soothing to me
it's
right
funny
now.
that you say that, because I had a couple people say, man, I had one person that lives near George Daniel, and they said, it really hurt the first couple Friday nights. Those lights weren't on. I didn't hear the band playing, and I didn't hear your voice. And that really, I didn't realize that people in the community, I mean, I know that it's kind of important, but when you hear it, and the person like teared up, and when they're saying, I never realized, because they live close enough where they can hear all those, and it's not the same without us being there. And I think our community not having those components of the band and the sports and all those things are things that we're missing. And I think the sooner that we can get back to that level of investment in the community, I think it's important. It really is.
So Steve, I think you said something huge, like the place where we want our students.
Absolutely.
Absolutely here in the building.
Yeah.
We want them involved in all the things that they've been accustomed to be involved in. And we want to enhance that, because we're also learning that there's a lot of different ways of engaging students right now too. So, we have to keep that focus. The focus is absolutely bringing students and staff back in a safe manner, and making sure that we're as informed as possible. I think that's what we all want. That's what we all need. And I mean, and there's various stories that keep coming out every single day, about, the risk factors and where it's going well here and where it may not be going well here. So to one of the slides and one of Ross's point, I'm sorry to kind of jump back in. We do have to design, thinking that everybody is COVID positive, but at the same time, at the essence of everything that we do, though, we don't want to put our community at risk further, because this is real. So I think there's this balancing act, and
It's like juggling knives without getting cut.
Yeah, and I've heard from teachers, and to your point, some are having some success, others are struggling. The same thing with families. We're trying to help as best as we can. We're listening to ideas, adapting those ideas where practical and applicable. And here's the frustrating part, and let's just be honest about it. All ideas, it's hard to put all ideas into action at the same time. There's various things that we have to weigh in order to reach decision. But this process, as we indicated, is how we do it. Not only here, but I mean, all the meetings behind the scenes. And to me, the magnifying glass that we'll put on things, this is how we operate as a school district, as a community moving forward. We're gonna be better. We've got to get the pandemic under control. We are still in a pandemic. And collectively, we all have to continue to talk about masks, talk about sanitizing, talk about social distancing, talk about being responsible with our choices, right? I mean, that's another piece, but you're right. Yeah, hearing all those things, we want our students back in school. I apologize for taking
No, you were right. You're spot on, because I would only add, because I do hear a lot from the public as well. And it's kind of and I'll just go on record. Sports is very important to me. Athletics, I was an athlete, I did it, and I know how important it is. But there's 6,000 other kids that we have to worry about in this district and how they get along safe. And not once have I had anybody walk up to me and say, we really need to get those biology labs open back up, but we keep talking about, what the sports are going to be leading the conversation. And the biggest conversation is, how do we get all of our students back into their class, and how do we do it safe for our entire community? And I need the community as a whole to understand that those things are very, very near and dear to everyone, and getting everyone to the other side safely. So that's my 2 cents, guys.
Can I just say quickly too, that the teachers are working extra hard. I mean, while I've been here, most know I have kids in many different grades, and
all 12 of them.
right. And I've got I think 3 or 4 dojos since I've been here tonight for this meeting. So they're still working. They're still working at 5, 6. I mean, one just came through just right now at 6 o'clock at night. I'm still getting dojo messages. I'm getting them at 8 o'clock in the morning that they're still, or when my younger girls are on break, I'm getting messages. So they're not taking a break when they're those 10 minutes, 15-minute breaks for my younger girls. That's when I'm getting dojo messages from the teachers saying, hey, can you check and see if this link worked in their Google Classroom? So when they go in to do it, can you go check on her laptop and see if it's working? So they're working extra hard now than they would have worked, not saying that they weren't working hard in the classroom, but they're working double, I would say now, to make this work
We do
for
have
the
some
kids.
issues. We're not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but I
Right.
can assure you, it's not from lack of effort from our staff. They have
Exactly.
been outstanding. And again, and I made this comment at the last board meeting, we also have to put in perspective that no one is doing a job that's consistent with their job description.
No.
But everyone is saying, just tell me what needs to be done and we'll get it
Mhm.
done because they know our kids need them. So again, I've just been floored by how incredible our staff has been throughout this process.
Yeah, it's interesting because not that we talk about it a lot, but I've had some concern. I know in my own world, the fact that we have this Zoom technology, whereas normally I might have 3 or 4 meetings in a day, I've got 8 meetings in a day. Meetings scheduled at the same time, where I have to leave one Zoom call because the other one starts. So I think we have to also be cautious that in everyone's desire to try and support everyone, that they're working too much. I think the wonderful thing about working in a non-structured environment, especially if you're diligent, means you can work anytime and all the time. And I think people are doing more all the time work. They're not taking time for their families, for themselves. And so in our desire and effort to do really good, we can do a lot of harm. So again, there's a balance that has to be there. And we want our kids to have everything they need. And so teachers are caregivers, and that's what they seem to intuitively, instinctively do. But those folks usually have difficulty with those barriers. And as we keep pushing them, encouraging them, everything but mandating them, at some stage we got to step back and say, okay, are we even assessing workload? I mean, I think that's another part of that survey for our staff is how much time are you working? And when are you working? Are you working at 10 o'clock at night? Are you working at 3 o'clock in the morning? Because if we see some patterns, those things are unhealthy, and you can do the unhealthy thing for a period of time. But if you do that for too long, then there's going to be some consequence. So I think we have to be really careful to how do we monitor those things, and what do they mean from a health perspective? What do they mean from a burnout perspective? So as our teachers are giving, and I know we have psychologists here for our students, but I think that's another thing that we have to really look at is what kind of care are we providing for the emotional support for our caregivers. So, but kudos to all of those doing all that work, but please take care of yourselves. And for family members, make sure when your family member is that teacher going way above and beyond, that you help to kind of bring them back into healthy lifestyle. So, but thank you for all those folks doing the work.
Other comments?
Yes. I would say that when you get the breakdown from the Mayor's CARES Act budget, hopefully we can twist his arm even a little bit more and get more money that we can proceed to help all the different buildings so our staff would be even and feel even better about coming back to the building. So we should check the amount of money that we're going to get from that CARES Act budget.
I wrote it down in my notes, twist mayor's arm.
Yes.
All right.
Yes, and I'll be right there helping you.
Seeing no other comments, we do need to go into an executive session to talk about contracts. I think that would be under D.
Yeah, and also A1 and A7.
A1, A7.
Mhm.
So when we come out, we're not going to have any further action, but we do need a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Sturgill,
Yes.
Ms. Nazario,
Yes.
Mr. Ballard,
Yes.
Ms. Johnson,
Yes.
and Mr. Williams.
Yes.
We'll be back.
Let the book